How's it going, everybody? I got a short video for y'all today. A couple months ago, a month or two ago, I don't know, I got a new handgun, new firearm. This here is the Bodyguard 2.0 chambered in 380. That's this little round right here. I have a box of 50 Federal 380 auto rounds. I'm going to perform a quick strip down of the handgun, do a step-by-step on the operations, and then we're going to go to the range, pop off a couple shots, and we'll call it a day. So first things first, most importantly, empty magazine. No magazine in the magazine well. I'm looking down the chamber. I can see that there are no rounds in the chamber. At this point, I'll go over all the different functions of the Bodyguard 2.0 by Smith and Wesson. I'm going to teach this as if the audience has no idea how to use a handgun. First things first, before we get into the video, we go over the 5 rules of gun safety. Treat every firearm as if it were loaded. Never point the muzzle at anything you are not willing to destroy. Keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Be sure of your target, what's beyond it. Wear appropriate eye and ear protection. With those rules out of the way, we're going to go over the function of the Bodyguard 2.0 in 380 by Smith and Wesson. For those who don't know, 380 is smaller than a 9mm. That's a very common handgun round. When I was looking into getting a handgun, I'm not great with handguns. I know I don't handle the recoil very well. I always anticipate and pull left or right, so I knew I wanted something a little less, with a little less oomph than a 9mm that wasn't going to kick as bad, so I got my 380. That being said, there's a big debate over, 380 versus 9mm for concealed carry, for self-defense, blah, blah, blah. I don't have a say in any of that. I'm just saying I chose 380 because I can handle the recoil better. At the end of the day, if shots are being fired, I'm going to duck as much from a 9mm as I will from a 380. I don't really think it makes much of a difference. That being said, I'm going to go over the function. So with my empty magazine, you put the magazine inside the magazine well. You can see the little red follower here in the magazine. To take the magazine out of the magazine well, you have a magazine release. This release can be switched to the other side. There's a little screw in there. You do a quarter turn. You can remove the assembly, switch it around, and put it back in. Originally, this was a right-handed configuration. I switched to a left-handed because I'm a lefty. To take the magazine out, you just depress that magazine release right here, and you can take your magazine out. Next up, on this side, you have your slide release or slide catch, and this is your takedown pin or takedown lever, which I'll also go over when we field strip it. Now, to go over the function of this, with an empty mag in the magazine well, again, it's empty, there's nothing in the chamber. When you pull back on the slide, it will not release. You need to have this around in the magazine well in order for the slide release to release and chamber around without having to push down on this, if that makes any sense. Because I do not have a round in this magazine, I'm going to have to depress slide release instead of just pulling back on the slide and releasing it. Now, this handgun is still pretty new, so it's still a little bit stiff, but you just put your thumb on the slide release, push down, and the slide releases. If there is a bullet in the magazine, a round would now be in the chamber. In order to lock the slide back, we're gonna again use my slide release, but it's also a slide catch, like I had said. So instead of having your thumb on the top pushing down to release the slide, we're gonna have our thumb underneath to push up on the slide catch, racking the slide back like so. Again, like I said, it's still pretty stiff. You're gonna push up on this knob while you're pulling back on the slide. Normally, I grab it like this. There's these little cutouts here that give you a little bit more room. I'm trying to show y'all, so I'm just holding it by the back. It makes it a little more difficult. So again, from completely empty mag, if I wanted to shoot around, you put the magazine in the magazine well. If there were a round, I could just pull it back and release it, but there is not a round. So Just close the slide with the slide catch, slide release, and at this point I'm ready to go. There is no external safety, I guess, like a little safety switch on my version of the Bodyguard 2.0. I do believe they have models with an external safety, but mine does not. What it does have is a trigger safety. So you have to depress this trigger safety and before pulling the trigger, which you do in one simple motion anyway, in order for it to fire. But as you can see, there's like one trigger and the second trigger. You have to depress both of them in order to fire. I can't just pull this one. You have to pull them both. Like I said, the magazine is empty and there was nothing in the chamber, so I know nothing's gonna fire. I can even pull it back a little bit and look in the chamber. I can see there's nothing in there. This slide does have a cutout right here where the ejection is, and you can look in there, and if there was a round, you can see the very end of the brass through this cutout, so you can see if the handgun is loaded. As I can tell that it is not loaded, the next thing you would do is pull the trigger. Simple as that. That is the basics of the Bodyguard 2.0 in 380. Next up, I'm going to teach how to do a field strip on this. So with Firearm unloaded, there's nothing in the chamber, nothing in the magazine well. And the slide racked back, there's a little lever inside the magazine well. It's really hard to see. Hopefully I can zoom in and you can see it a little bit. The lever is at 90 degrees right now. You're gonna depress it down. So it looks like that. Once that is depressed down, we're gonna take our takedown pin and we're gonna move that down like so. And now we're gonna slide our slide forward, put our thumb on the back of the slide, push, and now the slide comes off of the lower receiver. I don't know what you really call that on a handgun, but at this point you can see the trigger assembly, all this, and that's as far as I'm going to field strip the lower receiver of the 380. Once you have the slide assembly taken off of the lower receiver, you're gonna see that, hey, there's a spring. So we're gonna go just lift up the spring, take it out like that. And then this right here is your barrel. And so you can lift that up and out like so. Once that's taken up and out, you have your slide, you have your barrel, and you have a buffer spring. I don't know exactly what you call it. You have some kind of spring. At this point, you can clean it, grease it up, do what you gotta do. And then to put it back together, you're gonna have your slide. Normally your slide looks like this. So you flip your slide over. This is your barrel. There's a little hook at the very top of the barrel. That's going to be pointing up when you put it back in the slide. You can also see there's two holes in the slide. This hole is where the barrel is gonna come through. So I'm gonna put the barrel right up in the slide like this, drop it down and pull it back. I'll show that again from this angle. So I'll take my barrel out of the slide. We're gonna put our barrel in like so, drop it in, pull it back. And at this point, our barrel is back in the slide. Now we're gonna take our spring, buffer spring, I don't know exactly what you call it, and that's gonna go in the top hole. So we're gonna put the spring in the top hole and depress it so that, I'll show this a little bit better, but so that this disc sits on the hook, within a groove in the hook. So I'll try to show that a little bit better here. If I take this out, you can see the hook, and then you can see a groove right here in the hook. That's where this plate on the spring is gonna sit, right there in the groove of the hook. So I put my barrel back in. It's sitting flush against the rear of the slide. I put my spring in this hole, depress the spring, and now the spring is sitting on that groove on the hook. Now you're going to look at the spring, turn the slide so that you're looking at the spring, and you want to move that plate so that it's center within the slide. You see how it moves like that? You're going to want to center it on the hook in the slide best you can, something like that, so it's sitting as center as you can get it. Now at this point we have our slide, barrel, and spring reassembled, and we can get it back on the lower receiver. Now there are some grooves on the bottom of the slide that you can kind of see, hopefully like that. Hopefully you can see the grooves a little bit, right here, right here. Those tracks, those grooves are gonna fit on these tracks on the lower receiver, and these tracks here. So you're gonna take, remember the barrel is at the front of the slide, so we're gonna take the rear of the slide, put it on the front of the frame, line up the grooves with the rails, and slide it back on like that. It can take a little bit of finagling. I'll try to show that again. So you have these two rails, two front rails and two back rails, and then in the slide you have grooves that kind of go the whole length of the slide. You're going to put those grooves on either side of the rail, slide it back onto the frame like that on a little receiver. At this point we're going to rack our slide to the back and lock it with the slide catch like that. Once the slide is locked back, we're going to have our takedown lever, flip that back over, and now we're good to go. We're going to do a function test. I can see there's no brass. I'll test. I can see there's no brass in there. I don't have a magazine. I'll take it, and it doesn't go, and that's what it should do. So you'll take a magazine, empty magazine, put the empty magazine in, and I'll show you why it doesn't click. So remember that lever that we had to push down in here? You have to put a magazine back in the magazine well to push that lever back from here to here. You have to put that lever back up. At that point the trigger can reset. So we're going to take an empty magazine, put that in your firearm like that. That has pushed that lever back up, and now remember when there was no magazine in here and I could just release it? Now I can't. So we have to take our slide release like so, and now our trigger resets. And that is how you field strip a Bodyguard 2.0 Smith and Wesson in 380 auto. For my cleaning kit, I use a lot of the same supplies, to be honest, that I use on my M4. Use a lot of the same gun oil, a lot of the same brushes, different size bore cleaner, obviously, because it's a different size barrel. But just try to get as much of that crud out of there as you can. I try to clean it out every few 100 rounds. Now I realized I didn't go over the magazines too much. This is a fully loaded magazine. These are 10 round magazines. There are extended 12 round magazines that you can get that helps you put an extra finger on the grip, but I can seem to get most of my fingers on just fine. Again, empty magazine. I can get pretty much all of my fingers on, even though it is a very small handgun. I can get all my fingers on the grip pretty well, and that helps for increased controllability. A lot of folks know with the original Bodyguard, you couldn't really get all of your hands, all of your fingers on the grip, and that made it really hard to control. This one, I've been able to control it super easy. I haven't had any problems with it. All right, for loading a magazine, you'll take a round, you take your magazine, you'll know which way is the front of the magazine, because I mean, one way of knowing is that you can only put a magazine in one way. You can't put a magazine in wrong. So whichever way is the right way, that way is the front. So you'll take your round, you'll take your magazine, you want to put the end of the round on the red follower, push it down, and slide the round in so that the front of the round is facing the front of the magazine. Then for each consecutive round, you're going to take your thumb, push down on the rear of the brass, the rear of the magazine, put the rear of the next cartridge on the brass, push down, and slide in. It's not too hard the first few rounds. Definitely when you get up to numbers 8, 9, and 10, it gets a little more difficult because that spring tension is just building. My hands are pretty sweaty, so that also makes it difficult. And the last one, these things are pretty stiff. There we go. Like I said, these are new mags. They're very stiff. This handgun, new handgun, pretty stiff. It takes a lot of rounds, takes a lot of racking the slide to be able to loosen everything up. I'll demonstrate as well. Say you want to unload a magazine, like I unloaded this magazine when I was using it for demonstration purposes because I didn't want rounds to accidentally discharge. To unload a magazine you don't want to discharge, you just push at the rear of the cartridge and it pops out like so. You can just take them all out that way. One thing I do want to demonstrate briefly is that when the slide is closed, there's not a magazine in the magazine well, there's nothing in the chamber. You will not be able to put a magazine with a round in it in the gun. You're going to see it's not seated properly. The slide needs to be locked back. I'm going to have my finger on the slide catch pushing up. I'm going to rack the slide, lock our slide back, put the magazine in. Now it seats. Now there's a round in there. Remember, on the empty magazine, when I pull the slide back and release it, it stays back. Now that there's a round in the chamber, when I pull it back and release it, it chambers around. And if you remember too, the cutout on the ejection port, you can see that there's brass in there now. So that's an easy way to see, hey, this is a loaded handgun right now. You can also see it through the slide catch. There's a round in the chamber. At this point, I do have a fully loaded Bodyguard 2.0. All right, let's get to the range. Welcome to the range. Before we get firing, first thing I'm going to cover is storage of the handgun. My main wave storage is just a normal little handgun pack, like so. I keep an extra mag with it, keep the handgun in it, and I secure it with, this is a chamber lock, but it works just fine for securing my bag. There's 2 loops that can keep the zipper closed. You can kind of open the zipper, but not enough to remove the firearm, at least from my experience. Then other ways of securing your firearm, say you want to conceal carry it. They do make these conceal carry belts, so you can wear them with shorts or whatnot. I do use this. This is by Comfort Concealment. I've demonstrated that, and I think one other of my videos, so you can wear them in with shorts or anything like that. You don't need a real belt. Or you can do what I'm doing and conceal it on your person. That's my primary way. This is my secondary way if I'm not concealing. And then if I'm not wearing a belt, you can use this, just wrap around your waist, and that holds very well. I haven't had any problems with it. With that being said, there's one other thing I want to get to before we fire, and that is how to clear it with a round in the chamber. Right now, remember we talked about before, you can see through this divot that a round is in the chamber. So in order to clear the weapon, take out the magazine with the magazine release. Now the magazine is out, and now we just rack it like so. And now we can lock the slide back, verify nothing in the chamber, nothing in the magazine well. We have a cleared weapon. Nothing's going to happen when I pull the trigger. Now we are ready to fire. Just let me get my round back in my magazine, like so. Let me get my ears on. Rounds facing forward in the magazine well. Pull the slide back. Let it go. Now we're ready to fire. take the magazine out, verify it's empty. Let's go check out the damage. This is a brand new target. Oh, it looks like I chucked 2 rounds right through it. I was aiming for this target right here. This looks like I'm pulling a bit to the left. We hit, I don't know how many there. I broke one of my clips that holds the target on. Yeah, we smoked that pretty good. Brand new target, man. Next thing I'll do is demonstrating going through a magazine, reloading, and firing again. And I'll do that from first person view. So I'll get the GoPro on me and I'll demonstrate that. I was aiming right here, and it looks like, I could see some of my shots here. Just definitely missed a couple. One went over here. These was all that was here before, so I hit up there a little bit too. Well, it looks like I hit one down there, but at least I didn't break any more clips. Just to give a little bit more perspective, this is where I'm shooting from. That's my target right there. Not exactly sure how far this is. It's not terribly far, maybe 15 yards. Definitely, I got some practice to do. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something. This has been a how-to on the Smith and Wesson Bodyguard 2.0 in 380 auto. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you in the next video.